Ignored by everyone, a street boy confronts the arrogance of a room full of millionaires, and what he reveals there changes everything. The sun had barely risen when Tyler was already up. His room was a small improvised space in the corner of the service area in the basement of Liberty Tower, one of the most imposing buildings on Madison Avenue. A thin mattress, a cardboard box with his few clothes, and a worn backpack comprised all his possessions. At 11 years old, Tyler already carried in his eyes the experience of someone who had lived too much, but maintained in his smile the stubborn hope that only children can preserve. "Mom, I'm heading out," he whispered to Linda, who slept exhausted after a 12-hour shift, scrubbing the marble of the upper floors. Linda Oliver had been a cook at a restaurant in the Upper East Side until 3 years ago, when the establishment closed without warning. Without formal references, and with only incomplete elementary education, she was left to accept the job as a cleaner in that high-end building, where she was as invisible as the stains she removed daily. She woke briefly at the sound of her son's voice. "Come back before lunch, son. Today there's an inspection and Mr. Jerry doesn't want children in the building." Tyler nodded, knowing that the superintendent turned a blind eye to his presence only because Linda worked like nobody else. The boy grabbed his improvised tray with candies and chocolates he had bought at the wholesale market on Canal Street, kissed his mother's forehead, and discreetly climbed up the service stairs. Downtown New York woke up in its usual chaotic rhythm. Honking street vendors, hurried executives, and lost tourists composed the urban symphony that Tyler knew by heart. He positioned himself strategically at the intersection of Madison and 51st, where the light took almost 2 minutes to change. There, among the stopped cars, he sold his sweets while absorbing fragments of conversations like a sponge. "Good morning, sir. $1 each, very cheap," he would say to foreign executives who lowered the tinted windows of their imported cars. "Buenos dulces, señor. Muy sabrosos," he would offer to Latin tourists he identified by their suitcases and accents. "Buongiorno. Cioccolatini per la colazione," he would tease with his improvised Italian when he saw cars from Fiat or Ferrari. At 11 years old, Tyler spoke bits and pieces of 5 different languages, all learned on the streets, all absorbed out of necessity. It wasn't formal or academic knowledge. It was pure survival instinct, transformed into talent. That Wednesday morning, business was slow. A thin, persistent drizzle drove away pedestrians and made drivers even more impatient. After 2 hours, Tyler had sold only a third of his stock. He decided to change strategy and walk to the entrance of the Grand Central Mall, where tourists sought shelter from the rain. It was there that he heard, for the first time, a conversation in Russian. 2 men with Slavic appearances were discussing something while looking at a tablet. Tyler didn't understand almost anything, but he recognized isolated words, numbers mainly, and something that seemed like the name of a company. Intrigued, he approached, pretending to offer his sweets. "Niet spasiba," dismissed the taller one, making a gesture with his hand. Tyler smiled and stepped away, but stayed nearby, trying to capture more of that strange, guttural language. In his mind, he began to associate sounds and expressions with possible meanings, as he always did when encountering a new language. At noon, as promised to his mother, he returned to Liberty Tower. The rain had increased, and his merchandise was protected in a plastic bag. He entered discreetly through the garage when he saw something unusual: several executive cars parked in reserved spaces and an atypical movement of men in suits entering and exiting the private elevator. With the curiosity that characterized him, Tyler hid behind a column and observed. He recognized some frequent faces of the building, but others were new. Among them were the 2 men who had been speaking Russian at the entrance of the mall. The boy felt a chill in his stomach. Too much coincidence for one day. It was then that he saw Oliver Anderson, the CEO of Liberty Construction Group, owner of the building and, indirectly, his mother's employer. Tall, with gray hair and an imposing stature, Oliver was known for his calculated coldness and relentless efficiency. At his side walked Alan Parker, majority shareholder and a controversial figure in economic news, always associated with aggressive business deals and controversial mergers. Tyler was about to head to the basement when he heard his name. "Why, Tyler, come here, son." It was Miss Zelda, General Services Secretary, and the only person besides his mother who treated him with any dignity in that place. "Miss Zelda, how are you? I'm going to see my mom." "Your mother is busy upstairs. The board people asked for extra service today. There's an important meeting happening. Seems like they're going to sell part of the company to some foreigners." Tyler's eyes lit up. Foreigners, different languages. Maybe it was his chance to practice a bit more. "Do you know if she'll be long?" "Oh, my child. Looks like the meeting will last all day. She asked me to tell you to go to Miss Nancy's house, but since it's raining, you can stay here in my cubicle until the rain stops." Miss Nancy was their neighbor in Riverside Heights, where they lived before Linda got permission to sleep in the basement of the building. But Tyler had no intention of going there, or staying in Miss Zelda's cramped cubicle. "Okay, I'll stay for a bit and then I'll go." As soon as Miss Zelda was distracted with her tasks, Tyler took the service elevator and snuck up to the 20th floor, where the main meeting room was located. He knew every corner of that building like the palm of his hand. 3 years exploring. Corridors and listening to conversations had made him practically invisible to most employees. In the corridor that led to the meeting room, Tyler found his mother carrying a tray with coffees and waters. "Boy, what are you doing here?" whispered Linda, alarmed. "Mr. Jerry can't see you." "I came to help you, Mom. I sold little today. I can carry the heavy things for you." Linda looked around, concerned, but the truth was that she needed help. The extra service was hard, and her arms already ached. "All right, but stay just in the corridor. Don't enter the room and don't make noise. If anyone asks, you're just helping me today, understood?" Tyler nodded, taking one of the heavy trays. As they approached the meeting room, he could see through the tempered glass walls the intense movement inside. Men in suits gesticulated in front of a large screen where numbers and graphs were projected. In the center of the table, an open folder showed documents with an official appearance. "Leave the things here in the anteroom and go back to the basement, son," asked Linda, while organizing cups and glasses. But Tyler already had his ears attuned to the conversation leaking through the half-open door. Words in English, technical terms he had already heard in the conversations of executives in cars stopped at the traffic light, and then distinctly a phrase in Russian, the same word he had heard that morning at the entrance of the mall. The boy of 1,000 languages had just found his most valuable treasure, a conversation that would forever change the course of his life. The meeting room at Liberty Tower was a power aquarium, transparent glass walls that created the illusion of openness, but in reality separated two completely different worlds. On one side, executives in expensive suits and Swiss watches. On the other, invisible workers like Linda and her son Tyler, who served coffee in silence, with no right to voice or recognized presence. "The document is incomplete, Gary. How are we going to sign something like this?" Oliver Anderson's deep voice echoed through the anteroom, where Tyler was discreetly organizing the water bottles. Gary Foster, the legal director, a middle-aged man with deep bags under his eyes and thinning hair, seemed uncomfortable. He was sweating despite the cold air conditioning. "We did what we could, Oliver. The problem is that the contract came in 5 different languages. The Foster and Associates firm is overloaded. They only managed to translate the English and Spanish parts until now." Alan Parker, seated at the head of the table as if he were the true owner of that empire, intervened with his typical arrogance. "Drop." "Say it, Oliver. I've already spoken with my contacts in Russia. It's a standard deal, just bureaucracy. If we don't sign today, the Chinese will come in with a better proposal, and we'll lose the investment." Tyler, while pretending to arrange the trays, absorbed every word. His heart accelerated when he heard them mention the languages, 5 languages, precisely the 5 he had learned on the streets: English, Spanish, French, Italian, and Russian. In Senontora, the room, the discussion continued. Rachel Vasquez, the financial director, a woman in her 40s with an always serious expression, expressed her concern. "We have to at least understand what we're signing. We can't blindly trust." "That's what lawyers are for, Rachel," Alan retorted, impatient. and they've already given their opinion. Everything's fine. The boy perceived the growing tension in the room. He knew this type of situation well. At traffic lights, he also saw heated discussions inside luxury cars, always about money, always about power. The difference was that now he understood more than they imagined. While the executives debated, Tyler slowly approached the side table where the contract was open. There were dozens of pages with dense text in various languages, one page in English, another in Russian, another in Italian. Some clauses in French, others in Spanish. A deliberate linguistic puzzle, he deduced, made to confuse. "Kid, what are you doing there?" Alan's cutting voice interrupted his thoughts. Everyone in the room turned to look at the boy next to the documents. Linda entered the room hurriedly, her face pale with worry. "I'm sorry, sir. It's my son. He's just helping me today because there's a lot of work. We're leaving now." Alan made a gesture of disdain. "This is the cleaner's son? I thought Jerry had forbidden children in the building." Oliver Anderson, who until then had been observing in silence, intervened. "It's all right, Linda. Your son can stay if he's helping." The CEO had always been known for his coldness, but there was something in his eyes at that moment, a curiosity perhaps. Tyler held his gaze for a moment without submission, but also without challenge, just recognition between two observers. "The kid was looking at the contract," insisted Alan, visibly bothered. "Confidential documents, Oliver." Gary let out a nervous laugh. "And what will a street kid understand about international contracts, Alan?" "Relax." That's when it happened, one of those moments that change the course of stories. One of the Russian investors who was waiting in the anteroom entered, speaking on the phone in his native language, quick, harsh, irritated words, and Tyler, without realizing, reacted with an expression of surprise. The Russian noticed. He stopped talking and stared at the boy with curiosity. "Ty ponimaish?" he asked, testing him. The entire room froze. Linda, not understanding what was happening, pulled her son by the arm, but Tyler remained motionless. "Da nemnogo," the boy responded with his improvised accent, saying that he understood a little. The silence that followed was deafening. Alan was the first to break the tension, with an exaggerated laugh. "Look at that. The kid thinks he speaks Russian. How funny. Must have memorized some words he heard around." The Russian investor, however, wasn't laughing. He observed Tyler. With renewed intensity, "How did you learn Russian, boy?" he asked in English. Tyler hesitated, looking at his mother, who seemed about to faint with apprehension. "Russian truck drivers in Chinatown," he answered in simple but correct English. "They come to buy clothes to resell. I've been selling candy to them for 2 years. Oliver Anderson rose from his chair, suddenly interested. "You speak English too?" "Yes, sir. And Spanish, French, and Italian too," Tyler replied, switching naturally between languages. "I learned by listening to people at traffic lights. When you're invisible, you have a lot of time to listen." The room was in an uproar. Rachel Vasquez approached, fascinated. "This is incredible. How did you learn without formal study?" "I have a good memory," explained the boy with simplicity. "And when you need to sell, you learn quickly how to talk to people." Gary Foster, the legal director, who had laughed at the situation before, now observed Tyler with professional interest. He approached with a page of the contract. "Can you understand what's written here?" It was a page in Italian. Tyler read, in silence, processing the complex legal text. "It's about intellectual property," he said after a few seconds. "It says that any invention or idea developed after signing the contract automatically belongs to the buying company, even if it was created by current employees." Gary's eyes widened and he checked his notes. The boy's translation matched the preliminary summary he had received. Alan Parker, visibly uncomfortable, tried to regain control of the situation. "This is ridiculous. We're delaying $1 million meeting because of a show put on by a street Ori." "Kid, it's not a show," retorted the Russian, who now seemed genuinely impressed. The boy really understands. The atmosphere in the room had completely changed. What had begun as just another invisible day for Tyler and his mother now had the spotlight turned on them. Linda, confused and frightened, didn't know whether to feel pride or fear. "Son, we better go," she whispered, pulling him discreetly. But Oliver Anderson already had other plans. "Wait, Linda. Your son could be useful to us now." He turned to Tyler with an expression that mixed curiosity and opportunity. "Would you like to help us with this contract? We can pay for your time." Tyler's eyes lit up. Not for the money, but for the chance to be seen, to be valued for something. He knew how to do. Before he could answer, Alan intervened again. "This is madness. We're going to trust commercial secrets to a street kid. What guarantee do we have that he really understands what he's reading? He could be making it all up." That's when Oliver, with a challenging smile, proposed. "Let's test him then. Alan, choose any clause, in any language. If the boy can explain it correctly, he stays and helps us. If not, we go back to the original plan." Alan, confident that he would unmask the boy, took a random page and pointed to a paragraph in French. "Read this then, little genius." Tyler looked at the text, took a deep breath and began to read aloud with imperfect but comprehensible pronunciation. When he finished, he translated in his own words. "This part says that if there are any legal problems after the purchase, the authorized local representative assumes all responsibility, not the buying company." Alan turned slightly pale but maintained his composure. "And who would that local representative be according to the contract?" Tyler pointed to a footnote that almost went unnoticed. Here it says, "Mr. Alan Parker, as per preliminary agreement signed on April 15th of this year." A heavy silence fell over the room. Oliver Anderson slowly turned his gaze to Alan, who now had a red face and a tense jaw. "Preliminary agreement, Alan? What agreement would that be that the board didn't approve?" At that moment, Tyler realized that he had revealed something much bigger than he imagined. It wasn't just a translation. It was a betrayal exposed in broad daylight. The tension was palpable in the meeting room. The air conditioning blew cold, but Alan Parker's face burned bright red. The majority shareholder adjusted his expensive tie as if he needed more air. "This is absurd, a misinterpretation by an uneducated boy," he vociferated, trying to regain control. "Oliver, let's not let this circus continue." But Oliver Anderson already had the contract in his hands, carefully analyzing the clause and the footnote that Tyler had pointed out. His cold executive eyes now sparkled with a mixture of indignation and curiosity. Without saying a word, he passed the documents to Gary, the legal director. "It's exactly what's written here," confirmed Gary, after a few tense seconds. A preliminary agreement signed by Alan, committing him as the local legal representative. He raised his eyes from the paper, facing his colleague. "When were you planning to inform us about this, Alan?" Linda watched the scene terrified. She knew that corporate world well, not as a participant, but as an invisible spectator who cleaned up the remains of their daily battles. She pulled Tyler by the arm, whispering, "Let's go, son, this isn't our problem." But Tyler remained firm. Something inside him, perhaps the same instinct that had taught him to survive on the streets, told him that this was his moment. That all those foreign words he had collected over the years finally had a purpose. "Mom, I can help," he murmured back. "For the first time, I can really help." Oliver Anderson, noticing the attempt to withdraw, intervened. "Linda, please let your son stay. We will adequately compensate both of you for your time." He turned to Tyler with an expression that mixed respect and strategy. "Boy, I want you to examine the entire contract, page by page. I want to know exactly what is written in each language, especially in the parts that haven't been officially translated yet." Rachel Vasquez, the financial director, approached with a chair. "Sit here, Tyler. Make yourself comfortable. This might take some time." The boy sat at the meeting table, for the first time in a position of equality with those executives. His heart was racing, but his hands remained steady as he turned the pages of the contract. Alan tried one last intervention. "The investors are waiting. We have a schedule to keep. This farce could cost the company millions." "What could cost the company millions, Alan, is signing a contract without fully understanding its implications," retorted Oliver, with authority. "The investors can wait." During the next hour, Tyler immersed himself in a world of international legal language, complex terms, elaborate syntactic constructions, specific jargon. But the boy had a rare gift, the ability to find the essential, meaning behind the pompous words. Gradually, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. This part in Russian, pointed Tyler to a clause on page 27, says that after the transition, the new board will have the power to replace all board members without prior voting. And this one, in Italian, he continued, turning to page 34, says that all patents registered in the last 5 years will be re-evaluated under the new administration, which can decide which to keep and which to cede. With each new revelation, Alan's face grew paler. Oliver and the other directors exchanged looks of growing concern. What had seemed to be a simple merger and investment contract was revealing itself to be an elaborate trap for total transfer of control. "Son, are you sure about this?" asked Rachel, incredulous. "This completely contradicts what was presented to us in the preliminary negotiations." "I am," replied Tyler simply. "It's written here, in various places in different languages, as if they wanted to hide the important parts." Gary Foster, the legal director who was following the translations, making frantic notes, seemed increasingly disturbed. "My God, if we had signed this, it would be the end of Liberty Construction Group as we know it." "Exaggeration," exclaimed Alan in a last desperate attempt. "You're listening to a street kid, a candy seller who barely has formal education." That's when Tyler found something even more revealing. An entire page in French almost at the end of the document. Here it says that Mr. Alan Parker will be maintained as Deputy CEO for 5 years, with annual bonuses of €2 million, while the other directors will be re-evaluated after 90 days. A deadly silence took over the room. All the pieces of the puzzle finally fit together. It wasn't just a bad deal. It was a planned betrayal. Oliver Anderson rose slowly, his imposing figure of almost 6.5 feet, seeming even taller under the weight of the discovery. "Alan, do you have anything to say about this?" Cornered, Alan changed tactics. "Look, Oliver, business is like this. We need to be practical. The company has cash flow problems, you know that. This merger is the only viable way out." "A merger where you're the only one guaranteed?" questioned Rachel, indignant. "Where we hand over total control of the company we built from scratch." The heated discussion was interrupted by the entrance of Jerry, the superintendent, a middle-aged man with an always severe expression. "Mr. Oliver, the foreign investors have been waiting for over an hour in the video conference room. They're getting impatient." Everyone looked at each other, aware of the crucial decision they needed to make. It was Tyler who broke the silence, with the objectivity that only a child who grew up too fast could have. "You can't sign this contract. Not the way it is." Oliver looked at the boy, then at the wall clock, and made his decision. "Jerry, tell the investors we'll be there in 15 minutes. Gary, prepare a formal document requesting a complete review of the contract before signing. Rachel, I want a detailed analysis of all the financial implications of the clauses that Tyler translated." He then turned to Alan. "As for you, Alan, consider yourself temporarily removed from any decision related to this negotiation." Alan seemed about to explode, but contained himself when he realized he was at a disadvantage. "This is a mistake, Oliver. You'll regret it." "The only mistake would be ignoring what we discovered today," responded the CEO firmly. Tyler observed the scene with fascination. In a few hours, he had gone from invisible boy to central piece in a $1 million dispute. His mother, still stunned by the events, remained in a corner of the room as if fearing that any movement could break the spell or worsen the situation. "And the boy?" asked Gary, pointing to Tyler. "What do we do with him now?" Oliver reflected for a moment, studying the boy with new interest. "He comes with us to the video conference. We'll need his skills." Linda finally found the courage to speak. "With all due respect, Mr. Oliver, he's just a child. He's helped you enough." Oliver approached her with an expression he rarely showed, understanding. "Linda, I understand your concern. But your son has an extraordinary gift that could change the course of this company and of your lives. I promise we'll take care of him, and you can come too, of course." Tyler looked at his mother, his eyes begging for permission. It wasn't just for the adventure or the sudden importance. It was for the chance to use what he had learned on the streets for something meaningful. "It's okay, Mom. I want to go." Linda sighed, knowing she couldn't deny her son this opportunity. "I just don't want him to get hurt in this big people's game." "He won't get hurt," guaranteed Oliver. "In fact, it seems he understands the game better than many of us." The entourage prepared for the decisive video conference. Tyler received quick instructions on how to behave, what to say, and mainly, what to observe in the reactions of the foreign investors. "Listen not only to what they say, but how they say it," oriented Rachel. "Sometimes the true intention is in the tone, not in the words." As they walked down the corridor towards the video conference room, Tyler felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. For years, he had absorbed languages as a game, a survival tool. Now those words collected at the traffic lights and sidewalks of New York had the power to change destinies. "Ready?" asked Oliver before opening the door to the room. Tyler nodded, adjusting his posture. He was no longer the candy boy, the invisible son of the cleaner. He was the interpreter, the translator, the key to unraveling a meticulously architected plan in 5 different languages. "Yes, sir. I'm ready." The door opened, revealing a modern room with a huge screen where serious faces of international executives waited. The future of Liberty Construction Group, and of Tyler, would be decided in the next few hours. The video conference room at Liberty Tower was the epitome of corporate modernity. Walls covered in noble wood, an oval glass table, and occupying almost the entire front wall, a high-definition screen where 6 international executives waited with impatient expressions. When Oliver entered, followed by Rachel, Gary, and surprisingly Tyler and Linda, the faces on the screen showed a mixture of curiosity and disapproval. Alan entered last, visibly displeased, but maintaining the professional composure required by the moment. "Gentlemen, I apologize for the delay," began Oliver in formal English. "We had some unexpected developments that needed to be analyzed before proceeding." Sergei Petrov, the main Russian investor, a 60-year-old man with gray hair and piercing eyes, was the first to respond. "We understand, Mr. Anderson. Time in business is precious, but precision is even more valuable." Tyler, seated discreetly between Rachel and his mother, observed attentively. He noticed that, although Petrov spoke in English, he occasionally consulted notes in Russian. The other executives, 2 Italians, 1 Frenchman, and 2 Americans, exchanged almost imperceptible glances when certain points were mentioned. Oliver began a presentation about Liberty Construction Group, highlighting its 50-year history. In the American market, the innovative projects, and the vision for the future. With each slide, Tyler noticed how the investors reacted in subtly different ways. "And now, we would like to discuss some specific points of the contract that was sent to us," announced Oliver, finally arriving at the critical point. "Our legal department has identified clauses that seem to contradict the terms initially agreed upon." A silent tension filled both sides of the video conference. François Dubois, the French investor, a thin man with fine glasses, leaned towards the camera. "What specific clauses are causing concern, Mr. Anderson?" Gary began to cite the page numbers and paragraphs, but was interrupted by Giuseppe Moretti, one of the Italians. "Excuse me, but we understood that Mr. Parker had already clarified all these points in our preliminary meetings." Alan seized the opportunity to intervene. "Exactly. We've already discussed these issues exhaustively. They're just standard legal formalities in international contracts." Oliver maintained his calm, but his gaze hardened. "Curiously, Mr. Moretti, we don't have records of these preliminary meetings in the company's official archives." The silence that followed was revealing. Tyler noticed a quick exchange of glances between Petrov and Alan, something almost imperceptible, but loaded with meaning. It was then that Oliver made the unexpected move. "Gentlemen, allow me to introduce Tyler Oliver, a special consultant who assisted us in the multilingual analysis of the contract." The eyes of all the executives on the screen turned to the 11-year-old boy, dressed in simple clothes with a serious expression. The surprise was unanimous and immediate. "A boy?" questioned Robert Smith, one of the Americans, without hiding his incredulity. "Is this some kind of joke, Anderson?" "Not at all," replied Oliver with confidence. "Mr. Oliver possesses exceptional language skills, including all those used in drafting the contract. His analysis allowed us to identify significant discrepancies between the versions." Tyler felt the weight of all the gazes on him. His mother, at his side, squeezed his hand under the table, transmitting silent strength. The boy took a deep breath, remembering all the times he had faced the chaos of New York intersections, alone among impatient cars. Sergei Petrov was the first to test the boy. "Molodoj человек, ви действительно понимаете, о чем говорите в контракте?" Tyler recognized the question about whether he really understood the contract and responded in hesitant but comprehensible Russian. "Да, я понимаю достаточно, чтобы видеть противоречия." Petrov's eyes widened slightly. He clearly wasn't expecting a real response. François Dubois decided to continue the test. "Et en français? Pouvez-vous identifier les clauses problématiques?" "Oui, monsieur," replied Tyler, switching to French. "Spécialement la clause 23 concernant le transfert de propriété intellectuelle." A murmur ran through the room. The investors exchanged confused looks, while Alan seemed increasingly uncomfortable. Oliver, sensing the unexpected advantage, proceeded. "We would like to specifically highlight the clause in French on page 42, which mentions a previous agreement with Mr. Parker, guaranteeing his permanence as deputy CEO with specific compensations not approved by the board." François Dubois' face suddenly became serious. He turned away from the camera and said something in a low voice to someone present in his room. Giuseppe Moretti tried to regain control of the situation. "Mr. Anderson, with all due respect, are we discussing $1 billion business based on the interpretation of a street boy? This is highly irregular and potentially harmful to both parties." That's when Tyler, without being invited to speak, intervened. "Signor Moretti, nella pagina 36, lei stesso ha scritto che tutti I brevetti verrebbero rivalutati sotto la nuova amministrazione. Questo contraddice direttamente l'accordo verbal fatto con il Consiglio." The room fell into absolute silence. Tyler had not only responded in perfect Italian, but had cited exactly the contradiction that Moretti was trying to hide, that on page 36, he himself had written that all patents would be re-evaluated under the new administration, directly contradicting the verbal agreement made with the board. Robert Smith, the American, leaned towards the camera with renewed interest. "This kid really understands what he's talking about. How is this possible?" "Mr. Smith," responded Tyler in clear English, "I've been learning languages on the street since I was 8. When you sell candy at traffic lights, you either learn to communicate or you don't eat." The simplicity and honesty of the response seemed to touch something in the executives. For a moment, the corporate facade fell, revealing genuine human curiosity. Sergei Petrov was the first to recalibrate. "Mr. Anderson, it seems we have much more to discuss than we anticipated. I suggest we postpone the signing of the contract until all these discrepancies are adequately clarified." Oliver nodded, maintaining a neutral expression, but Tyler noticed the relief in his eyes. "I fully agree, Mr. Petrov. Our legal department will prepare a document detailing all the points that need to be revised." François Dubois intervened. "We would also like to review Mr. Parker's participation in these negotiations, considering the information that emerged today." Alan, who until then had maintained a tense but silent posture, could no longer contain himself. "This is absurd. We're throwing away a unique opportunity because of misunderstandings and the amateur interpretation of a kid." His explosion caused exactly the opposite effect to what he desired. The investors, already suspicious, saw in the emotional reaction the confirmation of their suspicions. "Mr. Parker," said Oliver with calculated coldness, "perhaps it's better for you to leave the meeting at this moment. We'll discuss your situation internally later." Rachel discreetly called security, who waited outside. 2 men entered silently and positioned themselves near Alan, who understood the implicit message. With a last furious look at Tyler, he left the room. The video conference continued for another hour, with the terms of the postponement being discussed. Tyler remained attentive, occasionally intervening when he perceived linguistic nuances in the speech of the foreign executives. In the end, a 2-week deadline was established for the complete revision of the contract, with official translators, working side by side with the lawyers of both parties. When the screen finally darkened and the international executives disappeared, the room was taken by a collective sigh of relief. "We did it," murmured Gary, wiping the sweat from his forehead. "We just avoided the biggest disaster in the history of this company." Rachel turned to Tyler with a genuine smile. "And all thanks to you, kid. You were simply incredible." Linda, who had remained in absolute silence throughout the entire meeting, now had tears in her eyes. She didn't understand all the details of what had happened, but she understood the essential. Her son had done something extraordinary. Oliver Anderson, always known for his emotional coldness, approached Tyler and, to everyone's surprise, knelt down to be at the boy's height. "Tyler, in 30 years of career, I've never seen anything like what you did today. You not only saved this company, but revealed a talent that we need to nurture and develop." The boy, accustomed to being invisible, didn't know how to react to so much praise and attention. "I just did what I know how to do, sir. Translate words." "No, Tyler," corrected Oliver. "You did much more than that. You translated intentions, unraveled strategies, exposed truths hidden in different languages. This isn't just translation, it's intelligence." Gary, always practical, intervened. "What do we do now with Alan? He was clearly plotting against the company." "The board will decide his fate," replied Oliver, "but I have the strong impression that his career at Liberty Construction Group has come to an end." While the executives discussed the next steps, Tyler looked at his mother, seeking in her eyes confirmation that all of this was real. Linda, still processing the day's events, just squeezed his hand tightly. "You've always been special, son," she whispered. "I always knew." Outside the video conference room, New York City continued its frantic rhythm. Cars honked at intersections, street vendors offered their merchandise, executives rushed to their next meetings. The world hadn't stopped. But for Tyler, something fundamental had changed. The same foreign words he had collected on the streets, like someone gathering lost coins, had transformed into keys that opened previously invisible doors. 3 days had passed since the fateful meeting that transformed Tyler from a simple candy seller into a key piece in a $1 million negotiation. The news spread quickly through the corridors of Liberty Tower. The cleaner's son had unmasked an international conspiracy and saved the company from a predatory acquisition. For Tyler and Linda, however, life remained almost the same. Almost. The service area in the basement continued to be their home, but now they received different looks from employees. Some of admiration, others of curiosity, few of disdain. The invisibility of before had been replaced by an uncomfortable notoriety. That Saturday morning, while organizing his tray of sweets for another day of sales at traffic lights, Tyler was surprised by knocks on the door. "Tyler, Linda, it's me, Rachel Vasquez." Linda opened the door, embarrassed to receive the company's financial director in her humble space. She was still wearing her cleaner's uniform, although it was her day off. "Good morning, Miss Rachel. How can I help you?" Rachel, impeccable, in her navy blue suit even on the weekend, carried a folder in her hand and a genuine smile on her face. "Good morning. Sorry to come without notice, but Mr. Oliver asked me to deliver this personally." She handed a sealed envelope to Linda, who received it with trembling hands. "What is this?" "A summons for an extraordinary board meeting on Monday. You two are the guests of honor." Tyler approached curious. He had never seen such an elegant envelope, with the Liberty Construction Group logo embossed in gold relief. "Why do they want to see us again?" Rachel smiled, crouching down to be at the boy's height. "Because you changed everything, Tyler. The board wants to formally thank you and, well, there are some proposals they would like to discuss with you." Linda, distrustful, by nature after years of disappointments, asked, "What kind of proposals?" "I prefer that Mr. Oliver explain personally, but I can say in advance that they are good news." Rachel hesitated, suddenly seeming aware of the environment they were in. "Actually, there's something I can offer immediately. If you want, I Have an empty apartment in Queens. It was my mother's, it's furnished, and you can stay there until Monday to rest properly before the meeting. Linda's eyes widened, surprised by the unexpected offer. An apartment? We can't accept that. It's too much. It's temporary, Linda assured Rachel. Just 2 days. Consider it part of the company's gratitude for what your son did. Tyler looked at his mother with pleading eyes. The idea of sleeping in a real bed, taking a hot shower without rushing, having a refrigerator, a sofa, these were luxuries that seemed to belong to another world. After a few moments of hesitation, Linda nodded. Just until Monday, then, and we insist on leaving everything clean before leaving. Rachel smiled, handing them a keychain with the address. A company car will come to pick you up in an hour. Do you have time to pack your things? Linda looked around. Their belongings fit into 2 plastic bags and a worn school backpack, an entire life reduced to the essentials. Yes, we have time. When Rachel left, mother and son looked at each other in silence, trying to absorb the sudden change. For 3 years they had lived in that windowless cubicle, grateful to at least have a roof. The prospect of a real apartment, even if just for 2 days, seemed unreal. Is this really true, Mum? Asked Tyler, verbalizing the insecurity they both felt. Linda hugged her son, feeling a mixture of pride and fear. I don't know, son, but you deserve this and much more for what you did. Exactly 1 hour later, a uniformed driver waited at the service entrance. He carried their few bags with the same respect he would show to executives and led them to a black sedan with tinted windows. Rachel's apartment was in a simple but well-maintained condominium in Queens. 2 bedrooms, spacious living room, equipped kitchen, hot water. For Tyler and Linda, it seemed like a palace. There's food in the fridge and clean clothes in the closets, explained the driver, handing them a card. For any need, just call this number. When they were alone, Tyler ran through the apartment like the child he still was, but rarely could be. He threw himself on the soft bed, opened the windows to feel the sun, turned on the television, opened the refrigerator just to admire the abundance. Linda observed, with silent tears running down her tired face. Seeing her son happy was a luxury, as great as the apartment itself. That weekend was an oasis in their lives. They took long showers, slept without the constant noise of the basement machines, cooked on a real stove. Simple everyday pleasures that for them seemed extraordinary. On Sunday night, while watching a movie on television, Tyler asked, Mum, do you think our life will change after this meeting tomorrow? Linda caressed her son's hair, contemplative. It already has, son. But we can't create too many expectations. The world of the rich isn't for people like us. Why not? I helped them. I showed that I can be useful. Yes, you were incredible, but these people, they use others when they need and then forget. We need to be prepared to return to our reality. Tyler fell silent, absorbing his mother's words. From a young age, he had learned not to dream too high, to be content with what was possible. But something had changed inside him. For the first time, he had felt the power of his own abilities, the value of what he knew how to do. Mom, even if we go back to the basement tomorrow, I'll continue studying. I'll learn more languages, read more books. One day I'll give us a better life. Linda kissed her son's forehead, moved by his determination. I know you will, my little one. I know you will. The next morning, at exactly 8 o'clock, the same driver appeared to pick them up. Tyler wore his best clothes, a blue polo shirt without tears and jeans that weren't too short. Linda had washed and ironed her only decent dress, saved for special occasions. Liberty Tower seemed different when they entered through the front door, not the service entrance. The imposing lobby with its double-height ceiling, the uniformed security guards, the Italian marble floor, everything acquired a new dimension when seen from the perspective of guests, not servants. Jerry, the superintendent who had expelled Tyler so many times, now greeted them respectfully. Good morning. Linda. Good morning, young Tyler. Mr. Oliver is already waiting in the boardroom. Please follow me. The social elevator, with its mirrors and noble wood, was another world compared to the service elevator they used to use. They went directly to the 30th floor, where the boardroom was located, a place that Linda only knew from having cleaned. Never from having been invited. When the doors opened, they were greeted by Rachel, who was smiling genuinely. "Welcome. How was the weekend?" "Wonderful, Miss Rachel," replied Tyler, sincere. "I've never slept so well in my life." Rachel exchanged a meaningful look with Linda, who just nodded in silence, too grateful to find adequate words. "Come, they're all waiting." The boardroom was imposing, a gigantic oval dark wood table, leather chairs, a panoramic view of New York through floor-to-ceiling windows. Around the table sat 8 men and 3 women in formal attire, the complete board of directors of Liberty Construction Group. Oliver Anderson stood up when they entered. "Linda, Tyler, thank you for coming. Please, sit here." He indicated 2 reserved chairs at the head of the table, the place where the chairman of the board would normally sit, a silent declaration of how much he valued their presence. Linda sat uncomfortably, keeping her hands in her lap and her posture rigid. Tyler, on the other hand, adjusted to the chair with curiosity, observing each face around the table. "Ladies and gentlemen," began Oliver, "I believe everyone already knows the extraordinary story we lived last week. Thanks to the courageous intervention and exceptional linguistic talent of this young man, we avoided a corporate catastrophe." A murmur of agreement ran through the table. Oliver continued. "The foreign investors sent a new proposal yesterday, with completely revised terms and much more favorable ones. Alan Parker has been permanently removed from the board, and an internal investigation is underway to determine the extent of his parallel negotiations." Gary Foster, the legal director, complimented. "The new contract is being simultaneously translated in all languages by a team of certified specialists. We won't leave any loopholes this time." Oliver smiled, turning to Tyler. "And this brings us to the real reason for this meeting. Tyler Oliver, this board has voted unanimously for the creation of a special program in your name, the Tyler Oliver Program for Exceptional Talents." Linda squeezed her son's hand, without fully understanding what that meant. Tyler also seemed confused. "A program with my name? What do you mean?" Rachel took the floor. "We identified in you an extraordinary talent that deserves to be nurtured and developed. This program will offer full scholarships, from elementary school to university, for young people from underprivileged communities with exceptional abilities. And you will be the first beneficiary," completed Oliver. "Enrollment in one of the best schools in New York, with emphasis on languages, private tutors, teaching materials, uniform, food, transportation, all funded by Liberty Construction Group." Tyler could barely breathe with the news. His mind was buzzing with possibilities that he had never considered real. "And there's more," continued Oliver. "After consulting our legal department, we decided to offer your mother a formal contract as supervisor of the general services sector, with a salary compatible with the function and complete benefits, including health insurance for both of you." Linda covered her mouth with her hands, unable to contain her tears. "And as part of the package," finalized Rachel, "we are offering a functional apartment in the same condominium where you spent the weekend. It will be your official residence, while you maintain ties with the company." The room fell silent as mother and son processed what they had just heard. It was more than a job or a scholarship. It was a real chance for a new beginning, a door to a future that seemed impossible just a week ago. "Why are you doing all this?" asked Linda, still distrustful of so much generosity. Oliver, always pragmatic, answered with sincerity. "First, because we owe it to you. Your son saved this company from a financial and ethical disaster. Second, because talents like Tyler's are rare and valuable. We want to see him develop his full potential. And third," added one of the board members who hadn't spoken yet, "because it's the right thing to do. Our company has resources to transform lives and we rarely do it. It's time to change that." Tyler looked at his mother, seeking guidance. All his life, Linda had made the decisions, protecting him as best she could from the hardships of the world. But now somehow the roles seemed reversed. His talent had opened doors that her tireless dedication had never managed to. Linda took a deep breath, wiping away her tears with dignity. "We accept. And I promise you won't regret it. I'll work harder than ever, and my son will study like nobody else." "I'm sure of that," smiled Oliver, extending his hand to seal the deal. When the meeting ended, Tyler and Linda were conducted to the Human Resources office to sign the first documents. A new life officially began at that moment, with a contract, a stamp, and a notarized signature. Leaving the building, almost at the end of the afternoon, Tyler stopped on the sidewalk and looked up, admiring the imposing facade of Liberty Tower. For 3 years, that place had been simultaneously his home and his prison. Now it would be the starting point for a future that not even his boldest dreams had imagined. "What are you thinking about, son?" asked Linda, noticing his lost gaze. Tyler smiled, clutching the backpack where he kept the signed contract. His passport to a new reality. "I'm thinking about all the words I'm still going to learn, Mum, in all the languages I don't know yet." Linda hugged her son, while the driver waited to take them to what they could now truly call home. 6 months had passed since that meeting that forever transformed the lives of Tyler and Linda. The apartment in Queens, once a temporary weekend, dream was now their permanent home. The white walls, once empty, were decorated with colorful pictures and photos of the small family. The refrigerator, always stocked. The beds, always made with clean sheets. The feeling of security, still. New but each day more familiar. On a sunny Saturday morning, Tyler was preparing for a special commitment. He wore an impeccable school uniform from the Anglo-American Academy, one of the most respected educational institutions in New York, known for its multilingual education program. His hair, once disheveled, was now neatly cut. His sneakers, new. His backpack full of books, no longer candies and sweets to sell. "Are you nervous, son?" asked Linda, adjusting his navy blue tie with the school emblem. "A little," admitted Tyler, checking the documents in his folder one more time. "I've never spoken to so many people before." That morning, the official launch of the Tyler Oliver Program for Exceptional Talents would take place in the main auditorium of Liberty Construction Group. Journalists, authorities, and potential sponsors would be present, and Tyler, as the inspiration and first beneficiary, would give a brief speech. "You'll do very well," assured Linda. "Just speak from the heart, as you always do." The intercom rang. The driver had arrived. Linda had also dressed carefully for the occasion. She wore a dark blue skirt and blazer set, bought especially for corporate events. Her hair, previously always tied in a functional bun for heavy work, was now loose and well cared for. Her hands, which for years had carried the calluses of hard work, were now soft, a reflection of her new position as supervisor, where she coordinated instead of executing. In the car, Tyler mentally reviewed his speech while observing the city passing by the window. New York seemed different viewed from the back seat of an executive sedan, no longer from among the cars at the traffic light. The same streets, the same buildings, the same street vendors, but the perspective had completely changed. "Look, Mom, there," pointed Tyler to a familiar intersection on Madison Avenue. "That's where I sold the most candy, especially when it rained because the executives felt sorry for me." Linda squeezed his hand, feeling the contrast between the recent past and the almost unbelievable present. "A lot has changed in a short time, hasn't it, son?" "Yes, but there's still a lot that needs to change," responded the boy, with the wisdom of someone who learned about the injustices of the world too early. "There are many other boys like me at the traffic lights, boys and girls who are also intelligent, also have talents." Liberty Tower was decorated for the event. An elegant banner at the entrance announced, "Tyler Oliver Program for Exceptional Talents, Investing in America's Future." Photographers recorded the arrival of guests, and a small group of journalists waited for interviews. When Tyler and Linda got out of the car, they were greeted by Rachel Vasquez, elegant as always in her gray suit. "Good morning, stars of the day ready? We have a full house today." Tyler took a deep breath, adjusting his tie. "I'm ready, Ms. Rachel." They were conducted through a different path from the usual entrance, through a VIP corridor that led directly to the backstage of The auditorium. There Oliver Anderson awaited them, impeccable in his dark suit. "Tyler, Linda, good to see you. Everyone is eager to officially meet our young prodigy." The auditorium was indeed packed, 300 seats, all occupied. In the first row, municipal authorities, embassy representatives, and potential sponsors of the program. In the central rows, journalists from various outlets. And to Tyler's surprise, in the last rows, a group of 40 uniformed children, students from public schools in the periphery, the first candidates to be evaluated for the program. Oliver went up on stage and the buzz gradually ceased. The lights adjusted, focusing on the central podium. "Good morning, everyone. It is with great satisfaction that we begin the official launch of the Tyler Oliver Program for Exceptional Talents, an initiative of Liberty Construction Group in partnership with the Municipal Department of Education and various supporting companies." While Oliver made the introduction, explaining the structure of the program, its objectives and goals for the coming years, Tyler carefully observed the children in the last rows. He saw in their eyes the same gleam of hope he had already seen in the mirror, the possibility of a different future, of previously unimaginable opportunities. "And now," announced Oliver, "I have the honor of calling to the stage the young man who inspired all of this and whose extraordinary talent made us rethink our social responsibility as a company. Ladies and gentlemen, Tyler Oliver." Fell applause reverberated through the auditorium as Tyler climbed the few steps to the stage. The boy adjusted the microphone, took a deep breath, and faced the audience. 6 months ago, it would have been unthinkable to be there, speaking to business people, politicians, and journalists. But life had taught him that the unthinkable was often just the improbable, awaiting an opportunity. "Good morning, everyone," he began, in clear and articulate English. "My name is Tyler Oliver. I am 11 years old. Until 6 months ago, I sold candy at the traffic lights on Madison Avenue and slept in the basement of this very building, along with my mother, who worked as a cleaner." A respectful silence took over the auditorium. It wasn't the formal and polished speech that many expected, but the sincere words of someone who had lived the reality of the streets firsthand. "I learned 5 languages without ever having had a formal lesson. I learned by listening, observing, repeating. I learned because I needed to survive. When you're invisible to society, as I was, you develop other ways to be seen, to be heard." Tyler paused, gathering courage for what would come next. He had rehearsed that speech for days, with the help of his new public speaking teacher. But now he felt he needed to speak with his own words, not with those that had been prepared for him. "People always ask me how I managed to learn so many languages on my own. The truth is that I was never really alone. The entire city was my teacher. The Russian executive who spoke on the phone while waiting for the light to change. The Italian tourist couple trying to find the Metropolitan Museum. The American businessman discussing deals in the back of a taxi. They all taught me without knowing." He looked directly at the children in the last row, connecting with them on a level that the adults in the room could not completely understand. "The Tyler program is not about me. It's about all of you who, like me, have hidden talents waiting for a chance. Talents that often even you don't know exist because no one has ever bothered to look." His voice gained strength and confidence with each word. "This program will offer complete scholarships for children from underprivileged communities with exceptional abilities. Not just in languages, but in mathematics, sciences, arts, music, technology. Any talent that can be developed and that can transform lives." He paused again, now looking at the business people and potential sponsors in the first row. "But for this, we need support. We need more companies, like Liberty Construction Group, to understand that investing in talents like mine isn't charity. It's an investment in the country's future." Then, surprising everyone, including his mother, Tyler began to alternate languages, demonstrating in practice his extraordinary ability. "People like you," he said in perfect English, turning to the representatives of foreign embassies, "can help build bridges between cultures through education. Talent knows no borders," he continued in French, addressing the cultural attaché of France, "but it needs opportunities to flourish. Each child has a unique potential. he affirmed in Italian, looking at the Italian businessman present, that deserves to be discovered and nurtured. And together, he concluded in Spanish, turning to the Latin American representatives, we can transform lives through education and knowledge. He finished in English, his voice emotional but firm. I was lucky. I was in the right place, at the right time, with the right talent. But we can't let the future of our children depend on luck. We need to create systems that actively seek out and develop exceptional talents, especially where they are least expected to be found, in the peripheries, at traffic lights, in basements. The auditorium erupted in enthusiastic applause. People stood up, moved by the eloquence and sincerity of that 11-year-old boy. Linda in the wings cried silently with pride. Oliver returned to the stage, visibly touched by the speech. I think I don't need to add much after those words. Tyler perfectly summarized the essence of what we want to build. Rachel came on stage with a large symbolic check. Liberty Construction Group is proud to announce the initial investment of $5 million for the next 2 years of the program, guaranteeing complete scholarships for 50 talented children. The applause resumed. Photographers recorded the moment, while journalists made frantic notes. Tyler, still on stage, observed everything with a mixture of pride and incredulity. His name, previously unknown, now graced an educational program that could transform hundreds of lives. After the official event, there was a reception in the main lobby. Tyler was surrounded by journalists, business people, and curious diplomats, all wanting to talk to the prodigy boy. He responded with education and simplicity, alternating languages as necessary, but always keeping his feet on the ground. In a quieter moment, he managed to approach the group of children from public schools who had attended the ceremony. They were boys and girls between 9 and 13 years old, from different backgrounds and stories, all with the same look of admiration. "Did you really live in the basement?" asked a skinny boy about 10 years old. "Yes, for 3 years," replied Tyler. "I slept on a mattress on the floor." "And now you're rich?" questioned a girl with colorful braids. Tyler smiled, shaking his head. "No, I'm not rich. I just have opportunities that I didn't have before. The true wealth is here," he pointed to his own head, "and here," he pointed to his heart. A teacher who was accompanying the group approached. "Tyler, would you mind taking a photo with the children? It would be very inspiring for them." "Of course not," he promptly responded. While posing for the photo, surrounded by those smiling children, Tyler realized that his transformation went far beyond the change of address or the new school. It was a transformation of purpose. The same foreign words he had previously used to sell candy now served to inspire others, to open paths, to build bridges. At the end of the event, when they were already in the car returning home, Linda asked her son, "And now, Tyler, what lies ahead?" The boy looked out the window, observing the city that had taught him so much. New York, with its chaos and its beauty, its contradictions and opportunities, its concrete and its dreams. "Now, I study, Mom, I study a lot. Not just languages, but everything I can learn. One day I want to be able to help more children like me, not just through the program, but directly." "How do you mean?" "I want to be a teacher, Mom, a language teacher for children from underprivileged communities. I want to teach other boys and girls to use words as tools, as keys that open doors." Linda smiled, moved by her son's maturity and generosity. "You'll be a great teacher, son." The car passed exactly by the intersection where Tyler used to sell candy. At the same traffic light, a skinny boy was offering gum to impatient drivers. For an instant, the gazes of Tyler and the boy crossed, one inside the executive car, the other among the vehicles. Two worlds that seemed distant, but that Tyler knew were separated only by opportunities. "Mom," Tyler said suddenly, "can we stop the car for a minute?" The driver complied with the request, parking in a permitted location. Tyler quickly got out and ran to the boy at the traffic light. They talked briefly, and Tyler gave him something, a card with information about the program. When he returned to the car, Linda questioned him with her look. "He speaks a little Spanish," explained Tyler. "He learned from his Bolivian grandmother. He could be the next candidate for the program. Linda hugged her son, proud of the person he was becoming. "You're changing lives, you know." Tyler shook his head, with the humility of someone who knew the difficulties of life early on. "No, Mum, I'm just showing that there is a path. Each one needs to make their own journey." The car continued down Madison Avenue, leaving behind the traffic light where it all began. On the horizon of New York, among skyscrapers and antennas, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and red. It was the same sun that Tyler observed when he slept in the basement, dreaming of a better future. Now that future had arrived not just for him, but potentially for many other children who, like him, just needed a chance. The words that were once just foreign sounds collected at traffic lights had transformed into a bridge to a new life.